Traveling the Vortex.
We've joined Colonel Lethbridge Stewart as he defends the Earth from alien menaces and arrive at episode 260. I'm Keith.
I'm Sean.
I'm Glenn.
How are you guys?
Deja vu.
Deja vu?
Deja vu. We're reviewing something we've already reviewed.
A little bit.
Spoiler filled this time.
With some added reviewing.
For your listening pleasure.
We hope.
I'm great. I'm fantastic.
Let me rephrase. We're reviewing this whether you like it or not.
I'm on cloud 9 this week.
Why are you in such a good mood, Glenn?
This has been the best week for a long time.
Did you go see Sisters?
This is the best week in 3 years. I went out and I saw, in fact, I went back and I did a rewatch. I did a 6-film rewatch. Everything leading up to Friday. And then Friday, you guys think I'm talking about Star Wars. I'm talking about Rocky. I went and watched all 6 Rocky films, and then I saw Creed. Oh, my gosh.
I've actually heard Creed's a really good movie.
I have, too. I didn't really see it. No. Star Wars. The world has changed. We have a 7th Star Wars film, as Sean put adequately last week.
I was thinking deep thoughts.
Yes. As we stopped recording, Sean said, do you realize next week
it'll be a different world.
There'll be 7 Star Wars films, and here we are. 7 Star Wars films.
The last time I talked to you guys, there were only 6.
Well, you've tweeted us, or texted us since then.
So I have a lot, actually. So, do we want to lead off with our spoiler-free Star Wars talk?
Yep. It was awesome! It was so good. So good. And I'm not going to rank anything except for to say that it is better than the prequel trilogy by far.
It definitely felt more like Star Wars than the prequels.
I'm an apologist for the prequels. I love the prequels, all the way down to Phantom Menace. But, man, this was, wow. This was me reliving my childhood.
It was Star Wars coming back to its full potential.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And most of that's the joy of seeing familiar characters on the screen once again. That was, wow.
I don't think it would have quite felt like Star Wars had they not gotten the characters back.
Yeah, it was,
even if they had connected names and everything. And
it was amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Every time one of them showed up, I'd go, Holly'd go, settle down.
I got a little teary-eyed when Han and Chewie showed up the first time.
Me too. Holly did ask me, she leaned over and said, did you expect it was going to be them? Because the scene, again, spoiler-free, but the scene kind of leads you to believe that it might not be them.
They just kind of showed up.
I knew immediately who was coming in that door.
So did I.
I had no idea it was them, but then it was like, oh, that's where the scene fits. Okay. I didn't cry at that. I did cry at our first look at the Falcon.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I was surprised, too.
Even having seen it in the trailers.
Yeah. But I rationalized it away as like, it's kind of the same thing whenever they change Doctor Who, and I come into it going, and then the TARDIS shows up, and I was like, oh, okay. Here's Star Wars. And it was like,
now.
And then there was the Falcon, and I started crying.
Oh.
Did you guys cry later in the film?
The feels.
No.
Yep.
You did?
I did.
I actually saw it coming.
And when we review the spoiler
filled later,
then I'll tell you why.
Oh, I know.
Okay. That's okay.
I expected.
No. I mean,
it was not for the reason I expected.
No. Well, maybe. I mean, yes, and there's more to it, but yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, I'm immensely pleased. JJ, it's in the right hands. JJ Abrams did a fantastic job. I see there's a lot of love for the film on Facebook right now. I think overwhelmingly everybody's loved it. There's a lot of people saying, well, I still have questions. Well, yes, of course we still have questions. There's 2 more films coming in the main series.
The rest of it.
And there are more films coming in the main series, and then there's more films coming in between.
Some of the questions they might have, they need to go to the books, too.
Yeah,
I think the books are going to fill in some of those questions.
I don't think you should have to do that.
Although that's
a marketing ploy.
That's what they're aiming for. So it depends on the questions they have. I really didn't have that many questions walking out of it.
I didn't either.
I felt satisfied with the story they gave me.
There was only one minute. There was only one moment in the film that I wish. I think I figured it out and should have been edited differently. But I can't talk about that here either because it's close to the end. But I think it should have been. No, not the very, very end, but close to the end, near the end. That it just seemed like something was a bit out of order that would have maybe satisfied something that is said and happens. But it was okay.
I liked nearly everything about the film.
Yeah, me too.
I do have two very small nitpicks, and it's very weird nitpicks on my end. It's weird watching a Star Wars film and not have the 20th Century Fox fanfare to start it off.
Okay,
at least they started. At least they started with the Lucasfilm logo and just went right into the film.
Here's the deal.
There was no Disney Castle. I was glad about that.
I've seen online where
and me, a huge Disney fan, still would have been bothered by that Disney Castle at the beginning.
I've seen online where they've said, I assume when these show up on Blu-ray eventually, they've already written a new piece of music. And it's the Disney Castle, and then the Lucasfilm logo, and it's not the Fox fanfare, obviously, but it sounds like a big fanfare that then leads into the Lucasfilm extension for that part of the logo, and that's what will be used. And I'd seen that. And then the Disney exec said, we're not putting the castle at the beginning. And I went, oh, okay. I mean, I mean, it doesn't bother me any, but I get why. You're being respectful of the fans. That's kind of cool. And so the lights went down, 20 minutes of previews.
Lots of previews.
Lots of previews.
Lucasfilm logo. And I went, oh. Long time ago, galaxy far, far away. Boom. And I wasn't ready. There was,
it doesn't
there's a
prepare
beat
you
missing.
Because if you don't get the fanfare, then it's like there's something missing.
I need that moment to go.
Because every time I hear the fanfare, part of me thinks, am I going to watch Star Wars?
Yeah, no matter what you're watching.
No matter what you're watching.
Even though you've sut down and put it in your Blu-ray player, you know you're not watching Star Wars, but you hear the fanfare and you go, Star Wars.
Yeah. And so there was that
I'm
beat
glad I'm not
missing.
the only one that had this.
All the time.
That beat was missing, and I just... I
especially if you put a Fox film in that runs the whole fanfare, because not all of them do that.
Yeah.
Some of them do.
I felt thrown in the deep end of the pool. All of a sudden, Star Wars... And I think maybe the audience reacted that way, too, because when Star Wars went, bang, and started to fade back, nobody applauded. Nobody freaked out. Nobody cheered, and I kind of went...
They were all caught off guard.
I think so. Because, now, again, I don't want to compare apples and apples, but when Phantom Menace came out, and you remember this when we went and saw it.
Yeah.
Lucasfilm. Yeah! Long time ago. Shh. Star Wars. Yeah! And then everybody read, which that's the other thing, reading a new scroll.
Oh, yeah.
These are words that I've never seen before in this order. Going past, that's just weird. But yeah, I mean, people cheered. People cheered when the lights went down. People cheered when this happened. People cheered when this happened. They boom, boom, boom all the way along.
I think this probably because they cheered during Phantom Menace and then got Phantom Menace. And as much as I enjoy it, but a lot of people don't.
Hey, maybe that's why.
Did people cheer at the end of your movie?
We had some applause.
We had. I led the applause at the end of our movie. It was 10 a.m. in the morning. There was a lot of people who were still half asleep, I think. And I started clapping, and everybody joined in. I was like, yeah, that deserved it.
I went into the movie trepidatious, knowing, well, we've been quasi-burned before.
I went in nervous, but not really trepidatious.
My other small complaint was there's a bit where we go to pretty much a new cantina. And I appreciate the fact that they designed a whole bunch of aliens and put them all in there, and it was all real prosthetics and all that stuff. I would have liked to see some familiar species in there, too.
They're few and far between in this entire film.
Yeah, and that, I think it would have felt more like it would have helped ease that transition a little bit more between the sagas if that had been in there. I mean, you get the nice... them popping up later, some familiar species later on, which I really appreciated. But it was just like, okay, that's cool. I really like the new designs of all these aliens. Just throw in a couple familiar faces.
I got to ask, and I don't think this is a spoilerish. It is in a way, but it's not a detrimental spoiler. Was that Akbar around that table, around that playing table? I mean, it sounded exactly like him.
Well, they all sound the same.
It sounded exactly like him.
Granted, I don't think any other one has talked in the
films.
In the films,
I think we're all being completely speciesist by just assuming that it's Admiral Akbar, and it's like it could just be another Mon Calamari.
But it sounded exactly like him, and I've heard them in Clone Wars, and they all have they have that same style of voice, but they have a variation. Yeah. This guy sounded exactly like Akbar. So,
I remember seeing JJ say that it was.
Okay.
And according to the IMDb, if you can trust it, it is
Same actor?
Tim Rose, the same
good.
actor.
Okay.
I agree with
I
everything.
assume the other alien in that scene was also the same alien from Return of the Jedi. I don't want to spoil that because I hadn't seen that in advance. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
If I can make the sound he makes,
And the jowls.
Oh, that one.
that one.
Okay.
It
yeah,
is.
I figured that was it.
I didn't realize that was...
I assumed it was.
I
don't
Oh,
know.
you don't know.
I don't know.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
know. I assumed it was.
Oh, okay.
That could be species of me too, but
Well, because there were two. There was... Well, let's just
Yeah.
say it. There was 9 Num and there was 10... There was another
I
one.
assumed
There's
there was
another
one
one in
of
the
them.
background
Yeah.
that has a white suit that flies a B-wing.
yeah.
I can't
Yeah.
remember his name. 10 something.
I assumed it was him, and according to IMDb, it is. So
Oh, okay. There you go. I didn't assume, and I thought, it's just another of that particular species.
considering that, because I kind of assumed it was based off of the cantina scene of not seeing familiar species, that the species we would see would be characters we knew.
Oh, okay. Anyway,
I agree with everything that you said. I'm excited and happy and joyous. I am also maybe a little more nitpickier than Keith from the standpoint that there were a lot of little things that I kind of wished. It's a mix of new and old, and I think all of the new stuff that they did worked amazingly well. And I think maybe they focused a little too hard on the old stuff to give us those nostalgia. Hey, look what we did! Isn't that cool? And
you think so?
Just in a way.
There wasn't a lot of.
It wasn't
aside from the
pandering,
main characters. There wasn't a lot of fan
I
wink
didn't
in
think
it.
so at all.
the,
Yeah.
the
No,
plot
so
is
you were wanting more
identical.
fan wink. Is that what you're saying?
No,
Service.
Fan service.
I just feel like I went with Ray and Finn and all these new characters that I was mesmerized by the
I liked
fact
all the
that
new characters.
yeah, I did too, and that I was really kind of surprised and Poe. I'm
really
almost
like
kind of
Poe.
surprised that I fell in with this group as easily as I did. With this a whole new crew and it's a whole new this, and I didn't know what I was expecting, but it's like, yeah, these guys are awesome. This is great, and then everything else kind of kept pulling me back to remember when we did this and remember when we did this. It's like, go with the new guys.
I see what you're saying.
It just felt like the plot is very similarly structured.
I think they changed
to
it
New
enough.
Hope.
Oh, definitely.
And I think it was almost like they were playing it safe. Like they knew that we have to present this so that nobody gets really angry with us. We have to give them the Star Wars they remember. So let's give them the Star Wars they remember. And it's like you were doing fine before you came along with really giving me the Star Wars I remember.
Yeah, I disagree.
And like I said, that's nitpicky. It's
Yeah, I
very, very
disagree.
nitpicky.
I disagree.
I'm not one of those guys
Now,
who's like, oh, they just ripped off the movie.
That
'cause I
being
don't think they
said,
did, but
even though it feels like a Star Wars film, it also feels like a J.J. Abrams film.
yeah.
It really does.
There was a lot less lens
I was-
flare.
I was
appreciative
shocked.
of that.
And no bad robot logo at the beginning.
No,
Did you
there
notice
wasn't
that?
either.
At the
I
end
was,
there was.
Was there one at the
There
end?
wasn't
I
one at
was
the end.
really shocked that there wasn't one
There
at the
was
beginning.
in all the promotions.
Yeah.
Honestly,
I remember that because I remember at the beginning I told Holly, I said, they needed to have like BB running through there instead of the bad
I
robot.
think BB was one of the best additions to the
BB
entire
is the
universe.
greatest
BB's
thing
how
ever.
you do Jar Jar right.
Yes, yes.
If you're gonna do something for the
And-
kids,
and-
that's how
well,
you do it.
and-
Well, and that's what I've always said is that the humor for the original trilogy always came from the droids.
Yeah.
They were what made it funny. And then Jar Jar came along and they moved
Well-
the sense of humor to Jar Jar, and he was the one bumbling around and falling into things.
No,
like, the
because,
droids should be the
because
funny ones.
the humor for Jedi is the Ewoks. As much as people hate the Ewoks,
No,
I love
it's
the
the
Ewoks.
droids' interactions with the Ewoks.
No, it's the Ewoks.
C-3PO being treated as a god, and it's R2 shocking Wicket. Those are the
No,
humor
it's
ones.
Wicket from the get go. It's
Even him
Wicket
and Leia
with
before the
interacting
other
with
droids show
Leia
up.
is what it is.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
Yeah,
there.
Yeah,
now,
he's
now,
cute, but
now,
he's
in A New
the
Hope.
droids become an extension of that. Don't get me wrong, but in Return of the Jedi, it's the
Yeah,
Ewoks.
but in A New Hope, it's definitely the droids.
Yeah, oh,
Well,
definitely.
then that probably explains why I don't like Jedi as well as I like the other two.
that could be actually.
The droids are the funny ones. Leave the humor there.
And it's the droids at the beginning of Empire, and it's Yoda in the middle.
Yeah.
Yoda's
interactions with R2.
before we realize, well, and Luke for that matter, when he's pretending not to be Yoda. That's the humor there. But
how come R2 didn't just go, dude? That's who you're looking for.
Yeah.
Because R2's a troll too.
We're not going to pick apart the inconsistencies between the prequels and the original trilogy.
Anyway, no, BB-8 is the greatest thing in the history of great things.
Yeah.
Anyway, great movie, great start.
I really
to
look forward
a new
to going
trilogy,
to see it again.
And I will see it probably a dozen, if not half a dozen, or not a dozen times, a half a dozen times.
I'm looking forward to seeing it again, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where we go from here.
Yeah,
that more than anything else, with all of the really hardcore fanboys that are just screaming at the top of Star Wars is back. Star Wars didn't really ever go anywhere. It was there. Just you again. I'm apologist for the prequels too. You got to acknowledge them.
And then after that, we had Clone Wars, and that's still Star Wars.
Yeah, but what this one was very much like, okay, Star Wars is the way you remember it, and where are we going from here? That's the cool part. So,
yeah.
You guys do anything else this week? I got a new phone. That was it. Oh, and I found out my truck, which I don't think I talked about last week. I was in an accident 2 weeks ago with Mason. Everybody's fine. Everything's fine except for my truck. They thought they were going to be able to fix my truck, and now they went in there to start fixing it and found some hidden damage, and so it is now totaled. So we will be car shopping next week. So
hopefully there'll be some good
soon a new car. So,
hopefully there'll be some good end of year sales.
Yeah, I'm hoping so. We'll see. Anyway, that was pretty.
I can recommend a Scion.
No, I don't want a Scion. That sinks into my week.
I watched, since I didn't get to join for Star Wars with Friends because I was working. I watched Return of the Jedi ahead of Force Awakens, and then I also watched a Christmas special, a very Murray Christmas special.
Oh, I started that. I watched about 10 minutes of it, and
it's awkward.
It was so unfunny. I was like, turned it off.
It's a really weird. It's just weird.
That's what I've heard.
It's not
really
funny until there's a point where Bill Murray passes out and has this really weird dream where George Clooney and Miley Cyrus shows up, and they do this nice song with Miley Cyrus, and it's nice, and then it cuts to a song with George Clooney, and it's Santa Claus Needs Some Lovin'. Really weird.
Yeah, like I say, I watched 10 minutes of it.
That's all I did.
No, the only thing I did this week is we watched New Hope, and then we watched
you watched Bob Hope.
New Hope.
Oh, that's one of the things I've been doing this week.
Bob Hope.
You watched Bob Hope?
Yeah, I did watch Bob Hope.
Oh, I watched appropriately enough.
No, I didn't. I watched Bob Newhart. Never mind.
There you go.
Yeah. I knew it was a Bob. Go ahead.
I know the Bobs. Well, I know we don't get to the Christmas movies like you get to the Christmas movies. So, but we watched New Hope and we watched Empire tonight.
Anything else?
Nope.
Let's talk about news.
There really isn't anything in the news.
Well, then it's tied into our Doctor Who Legacy tip of the week.
So, if you haven't logged in recently, there's a new character you can unlock in the fan area if you have it, and it's going to be a whole line. If you've been in there previous to Saturday, you notice there hasn't really been any Christmas stuff in there. They're remedying that. Last year they did the Advent calendar, but because this year Series 9 went so far into December, they couldn't do the Advent calendar. So instead they're doing a bunch of what they're calling signature series. So after you purchase the fan area, or if you already have purchased, they're dropping levels in the fan area. Each day, players will unlock exclusive versions of an ally, which includes the actor's real signature on their character.
That's neat.
And I think they have different abilities also, so it's not just a skin.
Yeah.
It's a whole new character. The first one was Sabra from Time Heist. The Sixth Doctor is coming. Joe Grant, Van Gogh, Ace, and Rigsy all will be coming. The Christmas Eve, they will add the 12th Doctor's velvet jacket for the wardrobe coming out. And then on Christmas weekend, they'll launch their level based on the Husband of the River song. So you get a level to unlock each of these characters.
So we're basically getting a mini Advent calendar.
Pretty much. In the final week.
I think the signature series is kind of a cool way of doing it. It's something that's... I mean, it's not earth-shattering content, but I think it's cool and it's fun.
Well, it's neat that they, first of all, have a signature, and second, that they have a different ability on them.
I'm pretty sure they have a different.
That's a good idea.
It's like baseball cards.
Doesn't specify.
Ooh, this one's got an autograph on it.
My legacy news is I'm back.
Are you?
The phone will play Doctor Who Legacy, so I am back and I'm catching up pretty much. But which means, unfortunately, a lot of those characters that you were guaranteed drops. I'm having to keep playing the game until I get them dropped. But,
well, you're so far in advance. You're so far in the game.
Yeah, well, I have everything done, so I have nothing else to do but work on those characters. So
I'm still kind of.
Have you finished the story levels yet?
No. I'm still in a holding pattern.
I've got all
my problem is the iPad doesn't run it so well anymore with all the new updates.
That's why I completely almost dropped it altogether, because it was just I could get in and play one game and then it would just get so sluggish that I couldn't do anything.
It takes forever to load, and then once it does load, it's frequently that it lags out or dies on me in the middle of a level, and it's just kind of like. And it's not just that. I think it's the iPad in general. It's just that so many new updates have come out for it, and it's just the iPad 2 is just the iPad 2. They're trying to force me into something new.
Well, and, I mean, in order to improve the game, they have to. It's not Legacy's fault.
No! I don't want to give that impression at all. It's Apple. It's Apple going. You need new stuff.
Upgrade, yeah. Let me see. I'm pulling up the character just to double check.
Because my SimCity does this. SimCity's my other kind of addiction right now. Is I'm really hooked on. I love those kinds of games, and when I found out it was available, I was like, "Woo!" And so, wow,
that sounded like an explosion.
It was lightning. I saw it out the window.
Was it lightning?
Yeah.
Wow, that was the
wow
right out of me. That was lightning, huh?
Yeah.
That must have hit down nearby.
There was a flash outside.
Wow.
Like, is it thundering?
You sure
I thought I heard it earlier tonight.
You sure it wasn't an explosion you saw?
It might have been.
I didn't notice there were sprinkles on my windshield.
Yeah, it's been sprinkling off and on all night.
That
loud bang you heard in the background, we're all okay.
It's not an explosion or a gunshot.
Well, we hope.
Yeah. The characters do have different abilities.
Oh, good. Okay.
The Death Star might have just fired.
Oh, here's the rain.
Here's the rain.
Yeah.
Speaking of, you were talking about SimCity being your new.
Are you on?
No, I'm not on SimCity, but now my new addiction. Holly plays this game called Tsum Tsum. It's a Disney game. It's the little cute little pill-looking things that you stack on top of each other. Well, they have a game that accompanies that as well. And so she's been playing this thing for months, and I've been giving her a hard time about it because I think the Tsums, while they're cute, I think they're kind of silly. To me, it's a collecting gimmick. Even though it's Disney, they're cute. They've got little cartoons on Disney Channel that my kids watch. Those are cute. But I've never been sucked into the Tsums. I was like, oh, okay, they're cute. She's been playing this game for months, and I thought, well, I got some time, so I downloaded it to see what it was all about, and I have been playing nonstop for a week and a half now. So anyway, it's neither here nor there, but that's my other thing. Well, it played really well on my old phone too. So yeah, we just got the phones yesterday.
Oh, okay.
Well, that's your Doctor Who Legacy.
Tip of the week.
Up next, feedback. And our only bit of feedback this week comes from Kirk. Kirk writes, Series 9 wrap-up. Glenn, Keith, and Sean. I'm sorry that it's taken me a couple weeks to thank you for the package of goodies. You really know how to make a Patreon supporter feel appreciated. I'm listening to the mixtape CD right now. Also, I can rest easy now that I have my 12th Doctor cosplay covered for Planet Comic-Con 2016. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Kirk. Thanks for letting us know that you got it.
We expect to see you using the cosplay for Planet Comic-Con this year.
Yes.
Or next year.
I also want to share my thoughts on the final 4 episodes of Series 9. You might remember that I was very pleased with the stories through the Zygon 2-parter. I was just listening to the most recent episode of Verity, and I agree with their sentiment that it seems like the writers really rose up to the challenge of writing material suited to Peter Capaldi's temperament and accomplished acting skills. And from there, I segue into talking about the weakest episode of the season. I liked a lot of things about Sleep No More. It started out with a lot of promise. The supporting cast was interesting. The found footage aspect gave the story an unusual visual edge. I did cringe when the Eyeburger explanation was dropped, but I thought, hey, I'll roll with it for now. Then, there were more harebrained explanations of camera angles and such, and then the final 5 minutes didn't make sense. Finally, the last scene completely pulled the rug out from under the whole story and left everything unresolved. It was a major Gatiss fail. As an actor, producer, and writer, Mark Gatiss has done many things that I like. But he's one of my least favorite Doctor Who writers. As flawed as it is, Sleep No More might rank as my third favorite Mark Gatiss written episode. Young, Quiet Dead and the Crimson Aura definitely rank higher, but the rest, I'm not so sure. That should let you know how problematic I think most Mark Gatiss episodes are. I used to think that Mark Gatiss would be a natural successor to Moffat as a showrunner. As the years go by, that seems more and more worrisome prospects. Face the Raven was enjoyable. I like that they included a surrogate doctor, Ashilda, and a surrogate companion, Rigsy. I like that the mystique of the Trap Street and its inhabitants. On the other hand, Clara's death had so little emotional impact on me that I was hoping Moffat had a trick up his sleeve. Yep, but not right away. Heaven sent.
Moffat was playing the long game.
He sure was. Heaven sent. This was one of those times when I find myself out of step with fandom. Most people have ranked this episode as an instant classic and contender for best episode ever. It was fun and well made. I enjoyed it, but best ever? Nothing happens. My 2-word review. Amusing filler. Are those fighting words? Keep in mind that I'm the guy who thought The Doctor's Wife was good, but not nearly as spectacular as fandom made it out to be. One of the things that bothers me about both episodes is that the Doctor doesn't save anyone. Team TARDIS lands in danger and escapes. Next episode, Hellbent picks up where Face the Raven leaves off. There's your true two-parter. Capaldi's performance was spectacular. The plot was kind of off the rails at some points. For one thing, it was just bizarre for Moffat to just drop Gallifrey into our laps with no story or discovery, and no explanation beyond that the Time Lords must have figured out how to escape. Really? The Doctor's quest to find Gallifrey was set up as a defining story arc at the end of Day of the Doctor, and again at the end of Death in Heaven. I like Hellbent a lot, but I have to score it down a bit for annoying Moffat quirks like that. It may not sound like it based on my grousing and griping, but I think Series 9 ended strong. In my opinion, Series 8 was the most consistently lackluster series of New Who, but Series 9 is almost the strongest. In fact, there are only 2 episodes, The Girl Who Died and Sleep No More, that I would grade below an A-. Now I'm eager for the Christmas special and beyond. I'm very curious to see casting news about the next companion. I've prattled on way too long. Thanks, guys, for the enjoyable podcast and being good friends. I look forward to seeing you at Planet Comic-Con, if not sooner. Kirk.
Thank you, Kirk.
Thanks, Kirk. Good to hear from you.
And you're completely entitled to your opinions on those. And no, they're not fighting words.
I thought you were going to go with your wrong opinions on those.
Well, they are wrong, but you're perfectly entitled to them.
I agree with him that 8 was probably the most uneven of any New Who series, and 9 is, I think it's the strongest. I think flat out it's the strongest of New Who, but certainly one of.
I know, yeah. Most definitely.
And I think I agree with him that Sleep No More and what was the other one? Face the Raven.
Yeah.
Oh no, he did Girl Who Died. And
The Girl Who Died.
I would just Sleep No More and Face the Raven is the.
Oh yeah.
The 2 weakest.
The 2 weakest. But again, even the weak ones are still. None of these had talking trees in them.
That's true. It was a good season.
None of these had squiggle monsters.
No Absorbalovs.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with it.
Well, the story is fine. It's the monster I don't really like.
Yeah, but it was from a certain point of view.
None of these were idiots.
Okay, Obi-Wan.
We've been there, haven't we?
I enjoyed that point of view. I just don't like the monster in it. Oh, anyway, that's it for feedback. Let's do some reviews. First up in our reviews, the Lethbridge Stewart short story, Ambush. I don't have synopses for these.
Sorry, that would sound like the CBS ding from my radio days.
Pulling up my...
Nobody else got that. I don't know.
Nope.
Sorry, that was over probably even our listeners' hands.
Chirp. Chirp.
If you say so.
Chirp. Wait.
That was like the ding that indicated that CBS News was coming on the radio. Ding! And then the song was do-do-do-do.
You were in radio?
Yeah, I was in radio. Crying out loud. Crying out loud. Okay.
Next you're going to tell me you were a police officer.
No, Sean, I'm not going to tell you that. Again.
What did you guys think of the ambush?
Where's the synopses?
I don't have a synopsis.
We need a
just
synopsis.
said that.
I just said I don't have synopses for the short stories. And I already gave a synopsis for the other, for Schizoid Earth. So.
1968 London. A mysterious event has engulfed London, driving... I don't know. I'm not very good at synopses.
Stuff's about to get real.
Stuff's about to get real.
Lethbridge
Stewart's on a truck on his way.
Oh, I found one,
stop.
but it's almost as long as the actual story.
Never mind. For me, it was nice to get plopped down not only pre Lethbridge Stewart, Forgotten Son, but also kind of pre or into during the events of Web of Fear.
Yeah.
I get the impression that it starts just before Web of Fear, but leads right into events that are happening
kind of
at the beginning of Web of Fear.
Yeah.
So I thoroughly enjoyed having a different perspective or a new location or a different location that we don't see on television or learn about in Forgotten Son. So I thought that was really kind of cool.
I would agree. It was really neat seeing how, because it's always been kind of a curious thought when watching Web of Fear of he just kind of shows up out of nowhere. I mean, we get some drop lines of why he's there, and
4 episodes in.
Yeah. And so that's kind of neat to read about him getting to that point and understanding, and especially with now the foreknowledge of General Hamilton and all of that stuff makes it even cooler.
Agreed.
Knowing the forward backstory.
And not to mention that he and Driver Evans are the only ones that survive.
Yeah.
I mean, that was kind of an interesting piece as well, because we know that he's lost his entire platoon or whatever group. But now we actually see what happens that led up to that. The reason why Lethbridge Stewart's the one that survives. I mean, he's a very integral reason why he has to be there. So it was good. It was very, very good.
I'll go one step further.
Go ahead.
I will say that in my personal headcanon, this is the events of that missing episode 3.
That's a bit further than I'm willing to go.
But
since we have the audio and know what happened in episode 3.
No, it's nothing. The Doctor's doing stuff. That's really all you need. Meanwhile, let's introduce you to a new character. Here's Lethbridge.
Maybe it's what should have been left episode 3.
What it does is it fits nicely between 3 and 4. It really does. He doesn't show up till 4, right? Or is it 3? Okay.
He appears. His first appearance is in the missing episode,
which is 3.
Which is 3.
I thought it was 4, but okay. So yeah, then it really kind of feels like it could have been an episode 2.5. I mean, it really does. So I thought it was episode 4 that's gone, but.
Keith's looking it up, so I won't. No, I thought this was. I liked being dropped in the middle of it because it had this great, and that's something I think all the Lethbridge Stewart books have kind of done, both the long and the short. It seems like they all open with a bit of action, and we're kind of thrown in the deep end and left to swim. And because he's such a man of action, it totally works. The format for this, and I think that's great. But I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed the kind of, in a way, almost felt like I think it's
episode 3 is missing a Web of Fear.
Well, no, I'm not celebrating that it's missing.
You are correct.
Don't take my fist pump the wrong way. But it almost feels like, is it the 5th episode that we get the entire episode is the Colonel out running around fighting the Yeti on the streets?
Yeah, that's episode 5.
Yeah.
it kind of felt like
commandeers another group of men that he tries to lead to their death. No.
So yeah, it kind of felt like that it's just like, here's more of this action going on and the Yeti coming, and it was like, oh, this is so cool. So yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's a great quick little read. So it sets things up for
it sets things up for the rest of Web of Fear.
Right.
And gives us a little more Lethbridge Stewart backstory to support Forgotten Son. Because until Forgotten Son, the only backstory we have is that little piece from Web of Fear of Lethbridge Stewart. I mean, the 4 episodes that he's in, or 3 episodes that four episodes that he's in. And so this gives us just a chunk more of that as well. Mm-hmm. And I think that it almost satisfies the idea that you kind of, when, like you said, he just kind of shows up and you want more. It almost leaves you wishing that Lethbridge Stewart had been there in the first 2 episodes. It really does.
Yeah.
And so what this kind of does is it puts him in the first 2 episodes or because it's concurrently happening, it really gives a satisfaction for what was going on with Lethbridge Stewart leading up to that. So it's not so much of a, hey, he just shows up. In fact, now when you go back and watch Web of Fear and you're watching those first 2 episodes, you can now in your mind's eye go, this is what Lethbridge Stewart was doing. So.
And I really like how he ended it with about hindsight being a wonderful thing, and the actual last sentence being, it was a meeting that would change Lethbridge Stewart's life forever.
Forever, yep.
That's such a good way to end it. It kind of made me want to go pop in Web of Fear and be like, okay, now I'm going to watch that.
We could watch that again. I'd be all right with it.
I own it, so I can watch it.
Okay, we'll be right back, listener. We're going to go watch 6 episodes of Web of Fear, and then we'll return.
Quick, go to your DVD player and boot it up.
Impromptu Friday Night Who.
Should we move on to the next short story?
Now, just for the record, for listeners.
Or not.
Well, I'm just... Glenn, shush. This is... Because I had trouble finding it. That Ambush is in...
Oh, yeah. Ambush is in...
Top Secret Files. So if you're looking for that particular short story, and I kind of perused some of the other ones in Top Secret Files as well, and the whole thing looks very, very cool. I mean, there's a lot.
Yeah, there's a really nice foreword in the very beginning of it talking about Nicholas Courtney as an actor, and yeah.
There's also the first chapter of the book is actually the one that didn't end up getting used.
Oh,
in this
the original chapter, the original
first chapter,
opening, yeah.
That was then later replaced by the chapter we end up getting. So,
and some other nice essays about the Brigadier and whatnot.
I did read My Life with the Brig, which was by Graham Harper.
Yep,
director extraordinaire. When it comes to Doctor Who, and he had some wonderful things to say about Nicholas Courtney, so that was an enjoyable read as well. But yeah, Top Secret Files is where you can find the Ambush. Okay, now you can move on
to Legacies.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Okay,
I don't have a synopsis for this one either.
I didn't expect you
to. I really enjoyed this once I kind of figured out what was happening. I entered it very confused. I don't think it's the short story's fault. I think I went into it with thinking it was going to be one thing and wound up getting something else. And it being so long since I had read Forgotten Son that it was like, okay, remember that, but that's not what happened. And so
that was the part that. Are we doing spoiler-filled?
The shorts. Yeah, they've been out for a while.
So the book opens with kind of a recap of that little kind of open story where the child is saved by the dashing Brigadier from the Yeti in the garden. But here he doesn't. He saves him and then dies.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I was like, what?
Yeah.
Excuse me, I've got something stuck in my throat there.
And then it kind of continues and follows other characters as it goes. And they did a really nice job of incorporating characters we're familiar with, like Captain Knight and name-dropping characters.
Well, they're all here. Bishop's here, Pemberton's here. It's It's so starkly different from anything else.
Yeah.
While the trappings and the action are all the same, it's quite different because we already know the story of what happened here.
And this is
we already know how this is it was resolved. And to turn it on its ear and show us an Elseworld story of the things we're very familiar with is a bit unsettling because you're like you said, I came into it very confused because I was like, well, what's really going on here? And it's not even at a point where you kind of are let in on what's going on. You do figure it out ahead of time, I think.
Yeah,
I think not right away, but you kind of midway through you start piecing it together.
I knew where it was kind of headed. It did not end the way I expected it to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, we're not being spoiler free. It was when the first was when Jamie died.
Yeah.
And then Victoria.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, whoa, this is okay, I kind of suspected when Jamie died, and then once Victoria died, it kind of cemented what they were doing here.
Well, and it's also mentioned that
the doctor
shot and killed him, thinking he was a civilian. Well, no, thinking that he was a possessive civilian and not important at all. So that was very, okay.
Yeah,
the little man, as they call him,
the
little man in the police box.
He didn't warrant a code name yet.
Not worthy of one at that point. And once it kind of stops jumping around as much, because further on, it's Bishop, right? Once Bishop becomes kind of the lead character in the story, is when the story starts to become more stable. For me.
Yeah. Was it Bishop?
It was Bishop.
Okay,
I went forward.
Well, because Spence is the one that.
Oh yeah, old Spence.
Yeah, old Spence.
You're right.
He's for all intents and purposes, he's the hero.
Spence ends up being
Knight and Blake wind up dying too.
Spence was the catalyst for the change,
right?
Yeah.
So,
I also liked the not TARDIS showing up.
Police box. I like that. That's still the goal. That's like the goal is we have to get the police box.
Yeah.
That's the important thing. We have to get and there's a reason why it ends up being a very important thing, which was interesting because the whole time they're talking about this mission to get the police box, I keep thinking, what can they do with it? The doctor's gone. The companions are gone.
Locked.
It's locked. How are they going to get in it? What are they going to do with it? And it's not until it's realized what happens that, well, our hero is actually the TARDIS. Or what name did she go by?
Tessa?
Tessa.
Was it Tessa? Yeah, Tessa. So it's not until she reveals herself as Tessa that you're going, oh. And then she has to kind of unravel events that have happened, which I thought was honesty here. This is my least favorite of the three stories that we're reviewing, of the three shorts, and I only gave it, I think, 3 stars on Goodreads. But it's really it gets credit for being a very unique look at something, and I think the reason why it's my least favorite is because as we read these stories, they sort of expound upon not just Lethbridge Stewart, but the events surrounding everything that we're very familiar with, and I've always felt like these stories add to the mythos that already exists, and they expound on the mythos that always exists.
Right.
And this, in a way, completely steps away from that format and changes things and sets it on its ear. But I appreciate the uniqueness and the style of this story and how it can kind of give us some insight into characters that do lend to the mythos and to the characters that are being established, and give us a little different perspective on each one of them without changing the character at all. Just the events that they're going by.
Yeah.
And so I really kind of appreciated that aspect of this story.
I always really enjoy what-if stories, if the skewered alternate reality of things are different. I've always enjoyed those stories.
I'm not a big fan of what-ifs.
See, I think that's why.
I think that's why it doesn't... But again, I can appreciate what was done with this.
I think what it does is, instead of supplementing the television series, it supplements Forgotten Son very well.
Yeah.
Because it helps illustrate
Well, Owen still is a very important character.
Yeah.
And that's set forth.
And the resolution of Forgotten Son and the explanation of what the Great Intelligence is doing This illustrates what he was trying to do.
Yeah. Well,
before he realizes what he needs to do.
Not just that, but I think it fleshes out that really kind of what felt like a crash course on the great intelligence in Forgotten Son. It kind of expounds upon the whole linear reality of it.
Yeah.
How it doesn't just exist in this timeline, which I think Forgotten Son did a good job of kind of telling or explaining that, but this almost goes to broaden that a little bit more on the spectrum. And I think that's what I really liked about when we finally get to that chunk of the story, which I think is the best, is when Tessa shows up and has to has the confrontation with the great intelligence. I think that does a lot for fleshing out something that's really hard to wrap your head around, is the great intelligence and how it exists and how the astral plane plays into the idea of its existence. And I think this does a better job of broadening that crash course that we got in Forgotten Son. So I think in that way, it really supplements Forgotten Son the best.
Yeah, it really does.
I would agree with all of that. I'm kind of with Keith. I enjoy a well-told what-if story. The problem with the what-if story, especially when structured this way, when you come out right at the beginning and we've killed the main character, we've killed... for all intents and purposes, we've killed the Doctor. We've killed all the companions. You're telling me right off the bat this is a what-if story. Now, sometimes you can do that. It's fine. I mean, when I pick up a book and it's like, this is the what-if of the Civil War. And it's like, oh, so the South won. Okay, let's see where we go with this. Right. Because I have an interest in that kind of thing. But if I don't know going into it that it's a what-if story, but then you tell me right at the beginning, it's like, well, I know that you're going to have to come back and hit a reset button. You're going to have to pull them off it and fix all of this. So then when it happens, it's not a great surprise. It's not. Now, the way it happened, with it being the TARDIS, that was cool. And that was really an inventive and nifty way of doing it. And I love the, not even confrontation between the TARDIS and the great intelligence. The intelligence tried to start some stuff, and the TARDIS was like, I'm not having any of that right now. I came here to talk. Let's get this over. I thought that was really cool and really well done. Yeah. But then when the TARDIS had to go and get Spence and kind of say, look,
that's the aha moment for me.
Right.
Is when you realize what event has to correct itself. And that it's Spence that ends up, that it's Pemberton? It's Pemberton that is the catalyst of it in connection to Lethbridge Stewart. That was really, really cool. And in fact, it in itself then expounds on that first chapter that I've always felt was kind of just out there with Forgotten Son, but now it makes sense why Andy chose to put that as the first chapter, as opposed to the chapter that we ended up getting. Or, no, excuse me, that would have got had he not supplemented it. And so this story for me at the end goes a long way for really settling one of the issues that I had with Forgotten Son, which was a really cool opening chapter that really felt like it had no connection to Forgotten Son. Suddenly it has a connection to this story, and it's like, oh, okay, that's really neat.
So once you guys figured out what they were doing, did you expect it to be Clara? That resolved it?
I sort of thought that it was... I didn't know that... I suspected they would drop maybe a connection. I didn't expect it to be Clara, but I wondered if they were going to drop a connection to Clara. Because it's alluded to... Clara is alluded to in Forgotten Son.
Yeah.
The whole... we're calling it the crash course, but I guess that's what it is. Crash course on the great intelligence.
Info dump.
Yeah. So yeah, I thought that they might try to connect it, but I don't feel that they ever did.
No.
But they do mention the downtime scenario. They do mention all the Tibet incident. It interconnects all of that. I thought that was really cool too. So, which Forgotten Son did a good job of doing. Don't get me wrong. But
would it have made a difference if it was Clara? Instead of the TARDIS, would that have enhanced or changed or maybe detrimented?
I think it would have felt forced. Had we included Clara, or Clara had been the resolution, I think that would have felt forced to me. I think that having the TARDIS be the resolution and the entity of Tessa really kind of felt like the natural way to go. It really felt like in respect to... I like how Forgotten Son connects Clara, but doesn't necessarily utilize her.
Right.
This does the same thing. It doesn't connect Clara at all, don't get me wrong. But this does the same thing of having its own in-universe, in-mythos, in-time frame resolution. And I think that works for me better than if they had connected Clara.
I think I agree.
Or Clara been the resolution.
I could see that.
I think they could have connected Clara. In fact, again, I expected them to, but I think it might have felt forced had they used her as the resolution.
In a way, that almost is...
Who is this written by? I can't remember her name. Karen... Should give her credit for...
Norma Ashley.
Norma Ashley. Yeah.
I suppose in a way the problem we've run into now is that any writer who does a piece of fan fiction regarding a classic Doctor can go to the full nines of putting him in some sort of danger,
on the verge of death,
and then pull Clara out of the box and go, aha, this is the one that she saved him on.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay.
Which, I'm fine with that if somebody goes down that road, because we haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
So if somebody goes down that road and does it, I can appreciate that. I wouldn't have wanted that in this particular instance.
I'll just file that one away for later. No, I was glad it was the TARDIS. Like I said, I thought that was the cool factor with the way the story was told. It was like,
and I also...
And her recognition that it's Lethbridge Stewart that they need to save.
Initially, I had kind of hoped that she'd have used Idris.
Yeah,
and then I went back to the whole... I like that it was a different entity. She used a different entity this time. And so I went down that, missed opportunity, and then I went, no, glad we went this way. Glad
because Idris was that physical incarnation.
Right.
This is a different one. Yeah, even though it's the same soul.
Well, and it lends to the whole infinite idea of the TARDIS.
Yeah,
is you don't lock yourself into the same cliche.
Yeah,
the TARDIS is infinite. It's no bounds of time and space. And it's very clear that the TARDIS has no bounds. And by doing something like this, it just goes further to illustrate that there are no bounds.
I like that we did get a sexy reference.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. That helped nail down, since I couldn't say TARDIS, that really helped nail down who it was.
Well, and connect it to the new series.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very well done. All right, well, let's step forward one more time and give a little review of the next
one. Cold Step. I have a synopsis for this too, but it's almost as long as the story itself.
Well, it probably is, because this one was the shortest of all. This was only about 7 or 8 pages. So,
and this one
written
felt
by David McIntee and Andy Frankham Allen. Frankham Allen. Sorry, Andy.
While I enjoyed the little bit, this one seemed... I don't want to say unnecessary, but it gives us a little bit of backstory for Anne and her history with the dad, and it did help give some great, which we'll get to this in a little bit. I always thought that in Schizoid Earth, the Anne and Professor Travers storyline is kind of just there and kind of drops and doesn't go anywhere. This kind of helps flesh it out a little bit more, but not enough to fix any of my issues in the story, in the book.
And I think that's why I liked it so much. Because I agree with everything you just said. It doesn't go far enough, but it gives a little bit more. And I like how it's incorporated the reason why the professor has gone with Anne on this expedition. Because it doesn't explain to us why they're both on this expedition as much as this does, and gives a reason for why. She's basically looking after her father. She does not want him to go to Tibet because Alan's concerned for him. And as readers of the stories and what we know from Downtime, we especially don't want him to go to Tibet yet. We know he's going to end up there anyway. Yeah. But this really does a nice job of convincing me, wow, the Tibet stuff could have happened a lot sooner than it did. For Downtime, him going back and drawing Victoria, and by this was just one little roadblock. Unfortunately, it's a hurdle, and he cleared it because he ends up there anyway. But it was a nice little. I'd like to see a little bit of more of this through the Lethbridge Stewart series if we continue to go down the Professor Travers, Edward Travers line, because I'd like to see these little. He's on his way to Tibet. Oh, wait, no, we're going to bring him here. Oh, wait. So it kind of goes far enough to explain why it took so long for him to go back to Tibet as well. So I also like the explanation that we got about Travers using the one of the reasons maybe why he still had the Yeti, the robotic Yeti, and the sphere might have been because of his interest in utilizing a non-sentient or non-animal in order to do tests or research for things like that. Because it makes the connection that perhaps he wanted to use, because it says he wanted to do further research on how to use non-animals but have the animal traits, and so he was exploring this idea so that you weren't basically hurting real live animals, but you were able to mimic animal-like behavior in something by using the same technology that the spheres used with the Yeti, so that you could have a non-living entity but still have the same characteristics of an animal in order to experiment on. And I thought that was clever. And I'm making this sound like it's a big, huge plot point. It's not. It's really just like a sentence or two. Yeah. But it really goes a long way as to explain maybe why Travers kept the Yeti around with the control spear even after they had thwarted the Great Intelligence the first time in Tibet. So I thought that was a neat little way to, in just one or two sentences, kind of justify the reason why he still had this and why he wants to continue that idea of the process. So I thought that was cool as well.
I enjoyed the flashback bit that was in it. I think having come off of Legacies and I'm blanking on the first one now. Ambush. I was going and expecting, okay, I'm going to get this great little side story, maybe parallel or ahead of leading into the story, and this is more of filling a gap in the middle of the book.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, and part of that is my own mindset going into reading the story, but that kind of lessened it for me. I agree with a lot of what you just said. I really enjoyed the short bit. It was just short and in the middle of the book that I didn't want.
I think the other thing that I think this goes a long way to is give us little pieces.
It helps build Anne's character a lot,
and Anne's background, her family, the Goths. They talk about the relationship between the Travers and the Goths. Things that we learned about in Beast of Fang Rock. Yeah. This kind of gives you just a little bit more and dropping
it almost felt like they should have left this in, so that it would set up
the next book
a little better.
Yeah.
And that's what it
feels.
You
say left this in. I don't know that this was ever intended to be in the book. I don't know if it was either,
but the way it feels is it's a deleted scene.
Like that. It does feel like a deleted scene. I think what this did is gave Andy a opportunity to kind of broaden the spectrum of backstories throughout the linear links of the main line.
Yeah.
And so I think by framing it around what McIntee had already written for Schizoid Earth, by putting this in there, kind of gave him a little way to kind of stretch out the linear aspects of what was to come. And I think it worked really well. I think that's what I like the best about it, is it works really well to kind of broaden, if not expand, the things that we're learning, the little pieces of each character that we're learning and giving us in 7 pages, it gives very little backstory, but enough to be satisfying and connect a lot of dots. And I thought that was cool. And Alan, we haven't heard anything about Alan other than mentions of him in other books. And so to really get a scene now with Alan and kind of, understand the dynamic there, I thought that worked really well as well.
I would agree. Sean, you've been kind of quiet.
I kind of agree with both of you guys on this one. I felt the flashback part of it was phenomenal. I really enjoyed it was nice to get the brother who had been mentioned, but just kind of in passing almost, that, there's a Travers brother out there somewhere. And for as integral as Anne and the professor have been through the rest of the Lethbridge Stewart books, it's like, well, when are we going to get something on Alun? Alvin.
Alan.
It's spelled A-L-U-N, which is, I've never seen Alan spelled that way, but that's Alan, yeah.
When are we going to get something on Alan? And so then all of a sudden here was Alan. I was like, oh, all right, sweet. But I agree with Keith. I kind of feel like the framework of it, that, because it was couched, kind of in the middle of this clip from Schizoid, that part didn't work for me. Just, I don't know. I understand it was done just for the... It's like when you watch a deleted scene on a DVD and they give you the little bit before and the little bit after, so you know where that scene falls.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay. And then sometimes that scene goes on a little too long.
And you
You're
go,
like,
I know why they took that out.
I get it.
I know why they took that out.
Well, not even that so much, but when the framework, when the two parts at the beginning and the end of the clip go on and on and on, and you're like, I know where this is in the movie. I see. You don't need to look for a great stopping point here. I get it.
Right.
In a way, that's kind of where almost this felt like, because I love the middle part of it, but then once because I was confused, I kind of kept waiting for the next segment to start within the confines of, okay, we're on the helicopter and we're flying to the island. Maybe she's going to have another flashback. No, we've now landed on the island and we're going to go down to the crater. Maybe she's going to have another flashback. No, we're now uncovering the flying saucer.
Yeah.
And it's like, when are we going to get... And then it just ended, and then it got a little tagline at the end. To be continued in, and I felt cheated almost.
Well,
like, what are you doing to me?
Here's the thing is, we came to this from a perspective of already reading Schizoid Earth.
That's true.
Because this, in that way, would have served as a tease as to what...
That's
because
true, yeah.
I would have been really intrigued by that much more that was given, where they find the saucer and she thinks it's a bomb and they uncover it. He points out that it's got a hatch, and
that is exactly
that would have been
true.
It would have been a wonderful tease ahead to
Had we
what
done
is
this,
it they have found.
Had we done this in correct order,
Right,
and I'd read this first, not that I couldn't wait already
Well,
after the strong open, but I would not have been able to wait to get into Schizoid Earth because it's such a good. It's such a good tease. So that I blame totally on myself. It's just for not reading them in order.
Yeah.
But no, like I said, it's a good little story, and it's only.
Did anybody read the biography
10
that followed
pages,
after
the whole
that?
thing?
I did not.
There's a short little fill you in a little bit more on the back history of both Anne and Professor Travers. And if you get a chance, go on and read it. It's only 2 pages.
Oh, that's not too bad.
There's a paragraph on each, I think. It doesn't like open your mind and go, oh wow, I know so much more about them, but it gives little minor little details that you kind of go, oh okay. So.
Well, should we move on to our spoiler-filled review of Schizoid Earth?
Yes.
I'm not going to reread the synopses because I did that last time.
We will sound the spoiler warning on this one if you haven't got to this book yet. This is going to be full on. We're going to be talking about characters and events and things that are going on, and I don't think we're going to go necessarily into our love it or hate it, although this will maybe expound on why we liked or why we came to the conclusions we did when we talked about it. For me, the other thing is, too, hindsight's 2020. I immensely loved this book when it came. Following Forgotten Son, I don't think it was as good as Forgotten Son, but I so thoroughly like this book. But unfortunately, now we don't do ranking systems. But of the 4 books that we have done now, it really does fall to the bottom because we've had things since then. However, it does not diminish my love for the book, because I think that it's really incredibly done, and I think that the way that it's done in revisiting characters from another story, which is Inferno, because we do get we get the parallel Earth aspects of this. I really enjoyed that, and it went a long way to explain why a certain character, James Stewart, shows up in this. And you're like,
that was the biggest twist.
Okay,
halfway
wait
through
a
the book.
minute.
It's
this
like,
is
whoa.
the guy that died, and he died when Lethbridge Stewart was a kid, and he was young himself. And now we've got a fully grown James Stewart here, and Lethbridge Stewart, and you're going, what is going on here? What?
That was when the story ratcheted up and got interesting for me.
Where is Alistair at? Exactly.
Yeah, what the heck is going on?
Because I think we talked about
You're very
this
much in the dark leading up to that.
Because it does. It gives us little nuggets of what's happening, but it really doesn't have anything that's very coherent until that happens. And then you start to backwards put the pieces together and kind of figure out what's happening here.
Not Chorley. I can't remember his name now. The journalist starts looking in
Green.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you,
Larry.
It wasn't until I kind of realized what was going on with him, why he was there.
Yeah.
And the fact that Lethbridge Stewart was off in Earth 2 and everyone else was still on Earth 1. I mean, that's the best way to say it at this point.
Well, because there becomes an Earth 3 eventually.
Yeah.
And we presume this must be an infinite Earth theory.
Oh, yeah,
as well.
absolutely.
Because Tesla shows up later, which was, to me, I thought was quite an enjoyable part of the book as well. The events that are happening surrounding the Tesla storyline kind of maybe fall apart a little bit, but they don't maybe go as far enough.
Because
in the sense
it's
that
so
their
short
world is
amount
collapsing
of time on Earth 3.
we get very little of what is happening there because there's a lot of Earth 1 and there's a lot of Earth 2, but we don't Inferno Earth, and we don't get a lot of Tesla Earth. And I think maybe we feel like we get shorted a bit because we get thrown into circumstances that are already happening and impending
very
doom
far along.
that everybody else is already worked up to the end, and there's peril and everybody's concerned, and we don't have enough time to feel any sort of concern for our heroes or this cast of characters that we're thrown into, other than Lethbridge Stewart or Alistair and let's say the Lethbridge Stewart boys, and how they're going to get out of this peril. Yeah, all three of them. That's right, because there's a younger Alistair.
In Earth 3, and that was my favorite part, is the fact that he was the Alistair on Inferno Earth with the eye patch,
which ends up later on,
which was a great bit of cohesion, which didn't come together until almost the last minute.
Yes,
and that's when I was like, "Oh, okay, so it is for sure in Inferno Earth." I do kind of wish that they would have dropped something that we would have known that it was this, in fact, alternate universe that we are already familiar with.
Right.
Retroactively, it fixes it all, but during the ride, it was like, I feel so lost. I need some sort of other grounding point besides Lethbridge Stewart, who's also lost throughout the entire thing.
And that was I think my biggest problem with the story, is that it very much felt like it was Inferno Earth. Felt like it was supposed to be Inferno Earth, but we never got a confirmation one way or the other. And I kind of kept thinking to myself, and again, part of that is the keeping Lethbridge Stewart off balance, and then part of that is keeping the identity of James a secret until we make that reveal. And then it's like, well, now you've taken away the idea that maybe this is Inferno Earth, because I was building up to the idea that maybe this Lethbridge Stewart would wind up losing an eye at some point in time in the story and becoming,
and he does
that.
Well, and that
but
I see what you're saying.
but it doesn't. It's not.
He does, but in a different
It's
in a different.
You expected James to be Alistair.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
yes, and it was
the Inferno version of Alistair.
Correct.
But we do get an Alistair that does lose his eye.
Yes,
So then it brings you back around to, this is...
It really was.
Here's what it boils down to.
It does a bit of misdirection.
I think that McIntee tries to be a little too coy.
Right.
With revealing whether this is Inferno Earth or not. And I think by being too coy with it, it doesn't maybe satisfy those of us that felt like we made the connection and then decided, well, maybe we didn't make the connection, and then we did make the connection, and then we didn't, and then we did again. So I think that's the only detriment to this story, is that it doesn't just go ahead and be brazen enough about it, saying, you figured this out. It kind of makes you feel a little foolish that, you've tricked me twice, that kind of thing. So,
and then Tesla.
I liked Tesla.
And now here's the deal. You guys know me. I'd been all over Tesla. It's like, and then Tesla shows up, and it's like, cool. Tesla shows up so late in the game that, and that frustrated me, because at that point I almost felt like, man, I'd almost rather read that book.
Well, that's just it. It gives too little of a story there, which could, later, ultimately, you could write a whole story around what's happened here and what has led them to this point. Yeah.
Because I really did like the fact that they were shooting these pods back and back in alternate universes,
they think they're shooting them into the past.
Yeah, but
and unfortunately, they're shooting them to alternate realities because of the fact that they haven't quite got the method right. Yeah. And so instead of going back in the timeline, it's shooting off and creating another timeline, or in the instance, crossing through the parallel. They are still going through time, but unfortunately, they're landing, on this level instead of this linear level.
Yeah. And I liked how that was the explanation of why this was going on. But continue.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And that to me was...
It was a neat explanation that didn't make it sinister.
It was. It was nice that we had that. It was nice that we got that tie-in. At the same time, it almost felt not quite Deus Ex Machina, but it felt a little. The only reason that I give
see where you're going.
The only reason I can give you this is because I wanted to put the Tesla stuff in the book anyway. You know, and there's a lot of like I said, I loved the idea and the story and everything that was going on in the Tesla arc, but I just felt like we got way too little of it, way too late for it to be of any genuine cohesiveness to the story.
Well, and they could have done something really fascinating of making Tesla the villain more than anything else.
Tesla's a good guy.
An alternate version of Tesla where he's kind of evil, because this is the only Lethbridge Stewart novel that does not have an adversary. "Quote unquote." Its circumstances are the adversary. And I think that's part of why, for me, the book feels a little different and doesn't quite reach the level of the other ones.
Well, then
it's almost too new series. It's not classic series enough.
We get a whole alien threat here with this is why we're doing this. And yet that doesn't feel fully enough cooked. To really, you know, and like Glenn says, everything was so quick on, here's all of this. I mean, I just got to the point where I kind of felt like I was on equal footing with Inferno universe. And then you pull the rug out from me and we go to another parallel dimension. We introduce Tesla and an alien threat, and we kind of give the explanation for where the pods have been coming from and why. And we've got all these people that I've introduced you to that are in danger because of this alien. But it's like, I don't have enough time to care about them. I'm still playing catch-up, it feels like. So then we very quickly wrap everything up from the Tesla story arc and manage to succeed in wrapping up the other one as well. And it just kind of... I don't know. It was too little too late.
The wrap-up's a bit rushed, and I agree that it does feel a bit late. However, conceptually, I think the story is good. I like being.
I agree with that.
I liked being left in the dark at the beginning. I liked the fact that we end up on this parallel Earth, and Lethbridge Stewart, along with the reader, has to figure out what the heck is going on here. And he never really does. He never comes to a satisfaction because he's still dealing with it in later books. Yeah, he's still even later. He thinks he was in some Soviet concentration camp, and so I like that aspect. And really, it's James who is the hero in this story for a good chunk of it, because he's the one that says, he trusts that is my brother, that something has happened here, and Alistair does live, and so he puts, you put all of your trust as a reader in James, and I like that, even though Alistair's very reluctant to do so. But yeah, you're exactly right. Then once we get to the kind of the third act of this with the Tesla world, it's like we got to get this wrapped up really quick, and they kind of fall off, leaving you wanting more. But I think another thing that, and we talked a little bit about this in our previous review about this, but David A. McIntee also wrote a novel in the Doctor Who BBC Books realm called The Face of the Enemy. And I believe it is a third Doctor story, and it includes the Master, Lethbridge Stewart, Mike Yates, Ian Chesterton, Barbara Wright Chesterton. And it also has shades and parallels and delves into the infernal world as well.
He's a big fan of Inferno.
So he must be. So I think once we eventually come to this book, that maybe this will broaden and expand, because even some characters, the book shares some characters. And in fact, if we had read this, there's a certain character in this, and I can't remember. I think it's the second in command lady. I think she is also in
almost quasi love interest for Lethbridge Stewart.
I think she's also from Face of the Enemy. So I think that we would have made that connection a lot sooner and been satisfied. Our curiosity is whether we were really on Inferno Earth or not immediately. But because we only come from our knowledge of Inferno Earth from this TV story Inferno, we didn't get the connection. It took us a little longer to get the connection.
I agree. And
again, you shouldn't have to have read, I think, Face of the Enemy, but I think it will broaden our maybe like or dislike for this.
Well, there are things that you do as a writer where you come to it and you're going, I'm going to include this character from this one thing that I wrote 10 years ago, and it's an added in-joke for you and an added bonus for any of the readers who have read the previous thing and gone, oh, did you see what he did there? But it should still stand alone.
Dark Tower.
It should still stand alone for the people who have not read that. It should be just as strong, kind of like Star Wars. It should be just as strong as a thing on its own, without the the callback or the tie-in. And so there's a part of me that feels like, well, I don't know that he got there. And then there's another part of me that's like, no, it's fine. I mean, the book, I don't want to, I'm the dissenting opinion here, and I don't want to be the guy going, oh, I didn't like it because of that's not true. I still enjoyed the story. Yeah. You know, I still enjoyed the run.
I think you've come across that this was an enjoyable story.
Okay.
It just had weaknesses.
Yeah, and that was, I think, maybe the reason that I harp on those weaknesses more than you guys are.
It could have been even stronger.
Exactly, is because I so enjoyed the concept. I so enjoyed what we were doing, and Tesla! We got Tesla! And so I'm frustrated that it didn't play out better just from the standpoint that it was such a great idea for me.
Yeah.
That's where I come
But did you not, when Tesla shows up, did you not think, yeah, it had to be Tesla? I mean, who better to be experimenting with this or coming up with an idea like this than Tesla? I mean, it's like, just need more Tesla. I just need more.
Needed more time in Earth 3.
The world in general, in my opinion, needs more Tesla. I've become quite a fan for not being taught anything about the guy in school.
Isn't that interesting that he is such this enigmatic piece of history? We don't learn that much about him, but then when you do learn about him, you wonder why the heck we haven't learned that much about him.
You want to talk conspiracy theories?
Yeah, really.
And so, you know, because I've really, in the last, 2 years even, just kind of delved into this going, you know, I didn't know this, and I didn't know this, and I've been researching him and reading up on him, and I've kind of got in the back of my head, like there's a TV show percolating about Tesla. Kind of going, not a historical, kind of doing the full science fiction.
The Adventures of Young Tesla.
Exactly. No lie.
Steampunk and...
Yeah. You guys have nailed it. That's what I want to do. So, you know, hitting all of that and then coming to this book and going, there's Tesla. I mean, I was just like so excited. And he everything that he did, everything that involved Tesla was right in line with what I would have wanted. Yeah. So that was the added bonus to it.
It just leaves you wanting more.
But it left me wanting so much more. So,
yeah.
But I still give this story high marks. It's a wonderful piece of this Lethbridge Stewart story. Mm-hmm. It is the most different from all 4 books that have been released so far.
Which is not a bad thing.
No, it's not a bad thing at all.
It's good to have variety.
It is interesting in its placement. I'll give it that. Because everything else is, for the most part, sort of down to earth. I mean, they've got some high-minded ideas, don't get me wrong. And I love that. And that's what I like about probably the least high-minded is Mutually Assured Domination.
Yeah,
but it really kind of almost pushes the envelope a little bit more than the other books, which puts it on a different tier. Not necessarily better or worse, but it puts it on a different level than the other books. It seems interesting that this is the second outing. That this almost seems like, if you're going to do kind of a mind-warping idea of a story, you kind of wait down the line. But on the flip side of that, it works. It works where it is, and it works for the development. It works for the development of Lethbridge Stewart.
That's an interesting point. I wonder if this would have made a difference had they resequenced them at all. I mean, if we'd come off...
had they put Beast with some of those same high-minded ideas and execution done to a lesser extent, seconds.
Ramping us up to this kind of...
Well, not even necessarily that. What if you had done... why can't I not remember the first book now? Forgotten Son. If you'd done Forgotten Son... and then done something a little more straightforward, like Mutually Assured Domination, as the second book. Then given us Beast with the time warping and some of the stuff that's going on with that one, and then giving us this one with the universe warping,
gradually
and ramped up to that. Yeah. Maybe that would have,
as a series book-wise, that makes sense. However, the way Mutually Assured Domination plays out, universe-wise, you have to end at least the first series.
That's
with
true.
This.
I would agree. We're not second guessing Candy Jar books.
No, not at all.
My placement.
I think I kind of sort of trust that they know what they're doing.
Yeah, I trust that they know what they're doing.
They know the long
and it has worked in the format that it is.
Yeah,
it's interesting if you could have placed it somewhere else. I think maybe just us postulating the idea.
Because part of this book also kind of, aside from the pods that are showing up in actual Earth, kind of take a step away from the development towards Unit. I mean, Lethbridge Stewart, Alistair goes through all of this stuff, and it's great character growth for him, but it does not help forming the unit at all.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing to prove.
Yeah. I think the other thing that changed my mind about this book was having Beast of Fang Rock and Mutually Assured Domination, because originally, this being the second book in line, and I still feel this way, but it doesn't bother me as much, is we alluded to this before when we reviewed this book the first time, that it really feels like there's a lot of dropped stories in this. We get Professor and Ann Travers, but then we don't get much of them.
Yeah.
And we get Green, but we don't get much of what's going on with Green. And we get allusions to, they allude to Chorley a lot in this.
Yeah.
But we don't get anything of Chorley in it other than name dropping. And so it was one of those things that it left me wanting more of what was going on with them.
Some of those threads
but a lot of those get picked back up. So
Especially
now when I
Green.
look back on it, I'm thinking, well, now I don't feel so bad that I didn't get much Ann Travers, because I got a lot of Ann Travers by the time Beast of Fang Rock came around.
Yeah.
And then Chorley, I don't mind now that there was a lot of name dropping, because that paid off eventually in Mutually Assured Domination. So that issue that I had with it is much less now than it was when we initially reviewed this book.
I would agree with that as well. And that's one of the joys of putting a book in the middle of a series like that, is you can come back to pick those threads up in the later ones and kind of see, this is what they were going for. This is the world building that they were doing. And
which tells you that Candy Jar Books does have
a plan.
have a plan and has it right in that sense. So it is placed well. Okay, you guys did good. Not that you needed my permission. Not that you were going to listen to me about reordering the books either. No, it was good. And again, if you haven't read this and you went ahead and stuck through our spoiler review, definitely go read this book, because and read it where it needs to be read, because it does.
And read the short before.
Yeah, read it before you read.
Read One Cold Step before you read Schizoid Earth.
And now from here on out, with the next line, the next set of books that comes out, I will make sure that I read the short stories ahead of time, so that I'm getting those little nuggets, those little teases ahead.
Yeah.
And I think it'll work out better. But
and in the future, we'll review those short stories along with our review of the books.
And
for anybody wondering, why do you guys do that? Well, we're still learning the ropes with some of the stuff as we go.
And, obviously our next book review that we'll do will be Beast of Fang Rock, where we will do some more spoiler elements of it, which... Again, we'll talk about some of those things that we just could not talk about, like we did with Schizoid Earth, because that book fresh off the presses, we get the preview copy of it, and we've been real fortunate that Candy Jar Books and Andy Frankham-Allen have been really generous to be able to get this material to us so that we can review it at press time or at release time. Yeah. And so, we want to go back and give them a little more due as well whenever we can, and talk a little bit more, get a little more in depth about these stories.
Yeah, because they're worth getting in depth.
Oh
about.
yeah,
they
really
are. They are.
And thank you again to Andy and the folks at Candy Jar for getting us the stuff to begin with.
Mm-hmm. All right. Anything else we need to touch on before we move on to the schedule?
I don't think so.
All right. What do we coming? What do we have coming up on the schedule? Got one thing I have to say every week, and I can't get it out.
You had one job.
One job, man. One job.
Next week on the schedule is Christmas.
Christmas!
Which I know Glenn's all kinds of excited about.
Yes, I am.
Because it's kind of his thing.
I love Christmas.
On Friday night.
On Christmas.
On Christmas. Well,
I'm going to be in Hutchinson, so I probably won't be able to join in.
It'll technically be the 26th at midnight. But we'll. So
after you've opened your presents.
After you've opened your presents and had your fig pudding and whatever else you do for you and yours, join us on Christmas night at midnight, which is now the 26th, for A Christmas Carol. But not just any old version.
You paused and I thought maybe you'd forgotten what we were
I did forget what we were going to do. I had to find it and make sure I was reading the right one.
So we're tweeting along to a Muppet Christmas Carol?
Yes. Not just any version of A Christmas Carol, though. No. Doctor Who.
Oh, okay.
Doctor Who.
Not
Christmas
Muppet version.
Not the Muppet one.
Darn.
Not Scrooged.
Not Scrooged. Not the Alistair Sim one.
Not Alistair Sim. Not the
John Sim one.
Not Mickey.
No, John Sim. Who was the other one? There was one in between Alistair Sim and
George C. Scott.
George C. Scott. That was the other one.
Not the Family Ties episode.
Jim Carrey one.
Speaking of things that Glenn really probably likes.
Not the Odd Couple version that I watched this week. It was an episode called Scrooge Gets an Oscar.
No, we're doing the Matt Smith one.
Yes.
The 11th Doctor. Which happened to be the very first thing that we exposed Keith to.
To the beginning.
All those years ago.
We're going back to the beginning.
I've recently been doing it in the right order. Since we just watched End of Time, I've been rewatching season 5 in preparation for Christmas Carol.
You're building up to it.
Yep.
How's it going?
It's good. It's really good. I just finished the Silurian 2-parter. So I'm almost done.
All right.
Holds up.
So proud of you.
Holds up.
Anyway, and then we will be reviewing the Husbands of River Song, which is the Christmas special for this year, which will also be, we've got, 4 days left now?
4 days, yeah.
4 days to New Who, and then the long drought begins. But we're not going to talk about that now.
We don't want to.
We're going to just celebrate 4 days to New Who.
Yay!
And so we'll be reviewing that next week, and then the new year, new schedule, new everything, and I should probably get some stuff posted, which means Glenn has some homework he needs to get done so that I know what to post to tell all you kind folks about that we're going to be doing in the new year.
I put a reminder in my new phone.
You should probably put a reminder in your new phone.
I did put a reminder.
Oh, good. Put a reminder for your reminder.
A reminder for my reminder to remind me of my remindings.
So as soon as Glenn gives me that info, we'll pass it on to you.
All right. Well, that's going to do it. Oh, wait. No. I want to do one thing. I want to thank our Patreon subscribers.
Yes.
And if you're not subscribing to Patreon, be sure you do. All of that money does go back into this show. Every little bit helps. It can be just a little bit. I think the lowest amount you can donate is $1. And I think it goes up from there to anything you want to give. So we certainly appreciate anybody that can help us out. You can also find links on our website for merchandise through the various vendors, Amazon, Entertainment Earth, and our Spreadshirt shop.
That's the second thing you have to do each week that you just cannot seem to get out.
Two jobs, Glenn. And, of course, you can find us in the various forms of social media, which include...
We are, of course, on Facebook, Traveling the Vortex, Twitter, @TravelVortex. We are on Periscope, although we don't do that very often. We're on Google+. And, of course, the Goodreads Book Club, which last week I had mentioned that there was a poll up for the next month's, January's book, and I was incorrect. That it's not up yet, but as soon as it gets up, we'll make sure to let you know.
And if you're in the book club, we just talked about, we're going to make sure that we're including you guys a little more hands-on in the podcast by structuring our schedule next year in such a way that we'll be reviewing on the show the books that you guys read during the year. So you can look forward to that as well.
All right. That's going to do it for this week. Until next week, I'm Glenn.
I'm Sean.
I'm Keith.
Cheers.
Good night, everybody.
Be seeing you.
Thanks for listening.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.